Yeah, it started, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. I would like to welcome all the devotees who are online and who are present in person to this Wednesday evening program hosted by ISP. So today we have as the guest speaker His Grace Gaura Prabhu. He is a disciple of His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj and is one of the counselors with Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Mandir in Chowpatty, Mumbai. He is a full-time professor in the Computer Science Department of IIT Bombay. Professionally, he is an accomplished researcher recognized by the Government of India for his contributions and awarded by the institute and the industry. As an undergraduate student at IIT Bombay, he came in contact with devotees from Chapati. Thereafter, he actively participated in local preaching programs. To support the Sankirtana movement, he went on to pursue his graduate studies at IIT Bombay, finishing with a PhD in 2004. After working for a few years at IBM, in 2007, Prabhu came back to Mumbai and joined as a faculty at IIT Bombay. Since then, as a professor, he has been connecting with the faculty and the staff on campus, along with the students, and sharing bhakti with them through weekly satsang programs, reading groups, and festivals. Under his leadership, for more than a decade, every year, IIT Bombay has been celebrating Sri Krishna Janmashtami festival filled with Kirtana, Krishna Katha, and cultural programs. Prabhu was instrumental in establishing two Goshalas on the campus. Prabhu is deeply learned in Vedic traditions and holistic education system. In his regular sharing of Krishna consciousness, one can learn how to practically apply the principles of bhakti while harmonizing with one's swadharma to foster holistic development of a devotee in a sustainable manner. As a counselor, Prabhu has been guiding many families within and outside the IIT campus for several years. Living with his wife and parents, who are all senior disciples of His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj, and two daughters, in a vibrant Krishna conscious atmosphere, he is appreciated and looked upon as a great example of Grihastha Ashram. So let's welcome Gaur Hari Prabhu with the three Haribol. Haribol, Haribol, Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachalini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachalini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण हरे हरे राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Jaya Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Panchatattva Jaya Panchatattva Panchatattva Jaya Panchatattva Panchatattva Jaya Panchatattva Panchatattva Jaya Panchatattva Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Srila Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jaya Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jaya Jai Gurudev Jaya Gurudev Gurudev Jai Gurudev Jaya Srila Gurudev Itai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya अष्टोत्तर श्री श्रीमद हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय ब्रजभूमि श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय मायापुर नवदीप धाम की जय पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय गंगा मैया जमुना मैया की जय भक्ति देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय समवेत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय कलयुग पावन हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय इताय गौर प्रेमानंदे all glorious assembled devotees, all glorious assembled devotees, all glorious assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णकरुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तु ते। तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Pleasure to be with all of you here again in this ISKCON Valley. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for hosting this. Every opportunity that we seek to remember Krishna and take an honest assessment of our own consciousness in service to Krishna is actually a blessing, whether one is speaking or whether one is listening. I was told that the topic circulated is Krishna Katha. So I prepared some points on how Krishna is the dearmost object of every living entity. In Sanskrit, there are some words: Mitra, Bandhu, Sakha, Suhrit. All of these indicate friends. One can have lots of friends. Hey Mitra, hey Yadav, hey Sakheti. Sakheti, but in fact, Sakha Shabd is also there in that. The word is also there. Where Arjuna is recalling in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, hey Krishna, I addressed you as Sakha. Now, Sakha is someone who's all the time there. Mitra may be occasionally meeting you. One can be getting more close than a Mitra, Bandhu. However, Suhrit, one who is actually an eternal well-wisher, is Suhrit. Whether one is conscious of that person or not. And the closest example Prabhupada gives in this material world we experience is mother. Even if the son or the daughter has tended to forget the mother still makes a conscious effort to think about the child. So in that one sense, we can certainly understand from the Shastra how Krishna is dearmost to every living entity. He says that he is Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam Yatva Mam Shanti Mrchati Bhoktaram Yajnatapasam Sarva Loka Maheshwaram Suhridam. I am the Suhrit of every living entity. Sarvasya chaham hridhi sannivishto matta smriti jnanam apohanam cha. He is situated in everyone's heart as Suhrit. Exclusively, he has time for each and every one of us. So we can understand from that perspective. I was also thinking, let's relate to our own activities in this world and see where we are actually seeking Krishna, how Krishna is so dear to us. We all have experience of self preservation, the desire to preserve oneself. My grandmother would always tell me the story. I mean, it was very nice to see her, humbly saying this with honesty. She says, as a grandmother, as a mother, I'll say, I'll do everything for you, but I'll tell you a story. So she was just telling me, it's from childhood, she used to tell the story that there was a monkey whose child was by the side. And then there was a flood. So, there, of course, the mother monkey had to protect the child monkey. And then, when the water kept rising, the mother monkey put the child on the shoulder. And then the water further rose, the mother monkey put the child on the head. But then, when the water rose beyond a point, almost out of reflex action, she said, the mother monkey put the child below and stood on the child. So now, this is, of course, she used to tell us out of humility. We say we love you very much, but actually, self-preservation is something that is what we call reflex action in this world. Self-preservation, very touching when I heard this from her in my childhood days. I was thinking, she loves me so much, still she's speaking like this. But the fact is, self-preservation is very natural. In fact, Swartha and Paramartha go together. Only when you are nourished can you actually try and serve others. And this nourishment is also an act of preservation. So, even an animal, for example, tries to protect itself, it runs away from every danger. So, there's endeavor for survival at every instant. Now, one way is we can condemn this desire for self preservation. But the other way is we can also understand where is this coming from, right? Because is this self preservation the desire to preserve the body? Well, we know that sometimes we don't mind our body and undergo some suffering if the mind has to be preserved for mental peace. Someone is very disturbed at mind, the person doesn't eat. That means let the body starve, I want to be composed. So you go subtler, right? From body to the mind. That means there's something even more fundamental that I'm trying to preserve. And I mean, unfortunately, if we see that it also goes the other way, where a person, for the sake of the body, also lets the mind get degraded for just physical pleasures. We see that also happening. But honestly speaking, if we again reflect a little bit more deeply, when the time of preservation comes, one actually tries to withdraw from that which is gross and external to that which is subtle. And that's why, in times of reflex action, the mind takes precedence over the body. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Indriyani paranyahur indriyabhya paramanaha. Manasastu parabuddhe yo buddhe parasastu saha. The Atma is beyond the buddhi. The buddhi might be beyond the mind. The mind is beyond the senses. So, now why is this self preservation manifesting in a particular way? Uh, Whether it's at the level of body, very grossly, or at the level of mind. One can understand that these are all different stages of identification. That's what Krishna told Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. I'm identifying with something which I am not. In this world, there's so much identification has gone to such an extent that sometimes a person doesn't even identify with her or his own existence. One is constantly thinking of what others have. That person has more than me. Half the time, the mind is somewhere else, not even in this body, right? So, levels of identification go to no extent. But in that process, ultimately, the person that you're trying to cater to is still the individual. I want to be like that person. So identification creates chaos, whereas identity can never change. Right? So identity remains the same. Identification is in a flux all the time. So the root of it, one's basic attachment is actually to one's own self and not to which that supposedly belongs to oneself. And it's a satisfaction of the self that the whole creation of moving and non-moving entities and possessions is trying to cater to. So now let's understand why is this atma, the self, where which we perceive always is an object of catering to. It's because Krishna says mamai vamsho jiva loke. That atma, a small amsha of the supreme personality of Godhead, if it can possess one 24 by 7. Even in sleep one is possessed, dreams of oneself in particular situation, so possessed about oneself. And Krishna says this atma is a part and parcel of me. How attractive that person must be. Right? Just reflecting, I mean, it's overwhelming to even think like this. How attractive Krishna must be if I just realize whose part I am. So from this perspective, so I'm trying to give another perspective, how Krishna is actually dearmost to every living entity. The only issue is identification. Just like I identified with the body and that became very dear to me, I identified with someone, that person became very dear. I want to be like someone, I'm possessed with what I will do in that situation. So when there is identification, the possessiveness extends to what I'm identifying with. Now, if I identify myself as part of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, can we imagine what that identification will lead to? It will lead to not just loving Krishna, but loving everything that is Krishna's. Loving everything that is a part and parcel of Krishna. In that consciousness, one is not just thinking about oneself, but as my Guru Maharaj, Radhanath Maharaj often says, we get stuck with I. But then when this identification dawns, it's a feeling of we, because we are all part and parcel of Krishna. I don't exist independently. Everyone is connected to Krishna. In this growth, in this evolution of consciousness from I to we, connected through Krishna, everyone's attachment to Krishna, everyone's service to Krishna becomes very dear to us. Radha Vallabh Prabhu is such an amazing, cook is an understatement, right? But his Krishna is blessed. Now, one way is to think, oh, when can I, become better than him in cooking? That's when my identity is restricted to my own performance, independent of me as a part and parcel of Krishna. In fact, even independent of my or misidentifying myself with this body different from the Atma. But think of it the other way, right? If the success of any activity is pleasing Krishna, who is a source of activities, on whose foundation every activity is performed, because everyone is a part and parcel of him, then every activity is a chance for celebration. Every service we see, every splendor we see, which Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 10th chapter, that this entire universe is actually an extension of my splendor. Everything vibhuti, yad yad vibhuti mat sattvam srimad urjitam evava tattat evavagachatvam mama tejomsha sambhavam. My teja amsha. Entire 10th chapter, Krishna provides so many amshas. But he says, actually speaking, any amsha you see is a spark of my splendor. This is Udara Charitana Masudaiva Kutumbakam. This is when we are stuck with I and mine. Ganana Lagu Chetasa. This Ganana, that This is mine, this is I, this is mine. But udara charitanam tu vasudaiva kutumbakam. But you just make udar. Actually, udar, at least in the thought process, right? At least in the thought process, when I grow from I to Krishna, and through Krishna, a sense of we, then every devotee's activity, everything that is connected to Krishna, where we see the connection with Krishna, becomes a cause of celebration. And then we see Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. It may not be a consciousness that we are able to stay with 24/7, but we could spare some time in a day, some few moments in a day, where we can celebrate Krishna, how he is the most attractive of all objects. The reality is really that anything we love in this world is because it is connected to Krishna. This love, in its perverted reflection of lust, is when I want to separate that from Krishna. When I want to see its existence in connection with me, I want to possess it, but independent of Krishna. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also made this very clear. It's actually Krishna Bhuliya Jiva Bhogavancha Kare. Krishna Bhuliya. But it's interesting that the object which I'm attracted, that is also originating from Krishna. So it is just a matter of a very important course correction. Bring in Krishna. You bring in Krishna, that object which was so attractive, which I wanted to take away, that object I start respecting rather than exploiting. That activity which I wanted to exploit and associate with myself, I start respecting that activity. And not only we start respecting, we want to assist in making that activity even more fulfilling to Krishna. Throughout the scriptures, we find examples of how great devotees, even in the most heinous activity of asuras, try to see the connection with Krishna. None other than Prahlad Maharaj, towards whom Narsimhadev bestowed his mercy, and which we celebrated a few days back. Prahlad Maharaj, even his father, his friends, he always saw the connection with Krishna. Praying to the Supreme Personality of Godhead for the benediction of his father, who was the cause of his exploitation. Hiranyakashipu, on the other hand, saw every association of Prahlad Maharaj with the Supreme Lord as an obstacle. And here is Prahlad Maharaj seeing his association with his father as a cause that Krishna should bestow his mercy upon him. Please forgive him. So, of course, Prahlad Maharaj's prayers for forgiveness were also filled with so much humility. It isn't that my father, he offended me and forgive him. He was very envious towards you. The cause was envy towards you. I might have been the instrument. I might have been an object to which he displays his hatred towards you. But ultimately it was his forgetfulness of you, envy towards you. Mother Sita also, she was so confident that Prabhu Sri Ramchandra will come and rescue him. But yet that Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Ram, he still wanted to give Ravana a chance. Which means, again, the acknowledgement is there that the heinous activity of Ravana is because of forgetfulness of Lord Ram, forgetfulness of his eternal relationship with Lord Ram, forgetfulness of the fact that Lord Ram is a personification of Dharma. There's a very beautiful verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 21, verse number 7. And in the Krishna book, Prabhupada actually gives a context to this verse. I'll read Prabhupada's statement from the Krishna book. Without being an expansion of Krishna, nothing can be attractive. Like many Indians, they come from India to the West, and sometimes it's just so attractive. Right? It's good to acknowledge feelings and reality. Right? Of course, those who come from US to India also find other things attractive. So attraction is there everywhere. I mean, it is all in. It's there. Attraction is because of connection with Krishna. Now, how do we rationalize this attraction? More than rationalization, how do we go deeper and uncover the attraction, the root cause of this attraction? Prabhupada says, without being an expansion of Krishna, nothing can be attractive. Whatever is attractive within the cosmic manifestation is due to Krishna. Krishna is therefore the reservoir of all pleasure. Rasaraj Krishna. The active principle of everything is Krishna, and highly elevated transcendentalists see everything in connection with Him. Beautiful, so profound. So, there's this beautiful verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 21, verse number 7. The gopis are speaking. Akshanvatam phalamidam na param vidamah sakhya pashudanu vivesha yatorvayasyaihi vaktram vrajeshaya shasutayoranavenu jushtam yairva nipitamanuk rakta katakshamoksham. Katakshamoksham. They say, oh friends, those eyes that see the beautiful faces of the sons of Maharaj Nanda are certainly fortunate. So this verse is so apt here. Krishna and Balaram, one who sees the beautiful faces of, momentarily let's all see, right? Beautiful faces of the sons of Maharaj Nanda are certainly fortunate. The gopis are saying this. As these two sons enter the forest, surrounded by their friends, driving the cows before them, they hold their flutes to their mouths and glance lovingly upon the residents of Vrindavan forest. For those who have eyes, we think there is no greater object of vision. So, gopis, they must be seeing this every day. Then why are they again reciting it? See, this is acknowledgement. Sometimes what we see, if we simply pass over it, and that happens, right? Somebody at home cooks very nicely, we pass over it. Somebody sings very nicely, we pass over it. But that's not the lesson we hear from Srimad Bhagavatam. Gopis never pass over what they see. They actually meditate, they go deeper into what they have perceived, what they have experienced. So they say, they're describing these details which they see every day, but not taken for granted. They hold their flutes to their mouths and glance lovingly upon the residents of Vrindavan. So they're talking about both things. Eyes that are fixated on the cowherd boys, Krishna and Balaram, they are blessed because there's nothing greater to watch. But Krishna and Balaram, they also glance lovingly upon the residents of Vrindavan. So it's very reciprocal. The more the living entity is attracted to Krishna, the more the living entity actually becomes decorated and becomes an object of attraction for Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada made this very clear. I remember in reading in the Transcendental Diary, recounting how Srila Prabhupada was, I think, in Australia, and he saw in one of the temples that, devotees had shaven their heads, they were nicely adorned with tilaka. So then Prabhupada said, see, this is how, when you decorate Krishna, you also become beautiful. Why? And Prabhupada gave the analogy, when you decorate an original object, the reflection in the mirror also starts looking beautiful. So this is talking about this beautiful positive aspect of seeing connection with Krishna. I'll conclude with one more verse and then we'll talk about what happens when we forget Krishna, the misfortune. So this very interesting verse again from the 9th chapter, 9th canto, 24th chapter, verse number 65. Yasyananam karakundala charu karna bhrajat kapola subhagam savilasahasam nityotsavam nat tatrupur drishibhir pibantyo naryo narascha mudita kupita nimescha. So, ananam, face. Yasyananam, yeah, whose face is decorated with Makara Kundala Charukarna. His earrings resemble sharks. His ears are beautiful. His cheeks are brilliant. Bhrajat Kapola Subhagam. And his smiling is attractive to everyone. Whoever Nityotsavam, anyone who sees Krishna sees a festival. So just viewing Krishna is viewing a festival. His face and body are fully satisfying for everyone to see. But then what? There's still an issue. Naryo narasya mudita kupita. What does kupita means? Angry. Who are they angry with? How anger comes in the middle of this beautiful scene, right? So it's explained the devotees are angry with the creator for the disturbance caused by the momentary blinking of the eye. Because that blinking of the eye takes away that moment of continued glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Of course, there's a figurative in the sense that that momentary glance is an inhibition, but that momentary glance also serves a purpose. Because when you open the eyes, you see darshan. Every moment you have darshan. Just like we have Shayan darshan, right? So you close the curtains and open. Yes, one can also see that as Krishna's arrangement. Yet, from a figurative point of view, the gopis, they're wondering why did the creator do this? Create these eyelids, taking away this glance. But what happens when we forget Krishna? We again had a glimpse of that earlier. We'll build on that again. So forgetting Krishna and being enamored by his creation, we all have that experience. The tendency to enjoy, tendency to create a permanent channel of associating with that energy of Krishna. In fact, such an investment of energy that one sometimes ignores one's own body because creation is so beautiful and I want to enjoy it. To enjoy it momentarily, I don't mind compromising on my own health, on my own mental state, on all my near and dear ones. And we see the classic case of Ajamil. Yet, I mean, to have named son as Narayana, there must have been some darshan of Narayana all the time, right? And Prabhupada says that he had a regulation at home. He had very blessed wife. He had parents. He had such nice sangha. But that momentary glance, that energy invested into possessing what seemed attractive at that moment. Can you imagine? For him, nothing else mattered. In fact, it was abuse. We talk about abuse. This was absolute abuse of himself, of whatever he had, just by that momentary glance. But that glance, what he saw, I'm sorry if the story, should I narrate the story? Oh, I'm sorry, I just assume they're devotees. Okay, yeah. I'm just trying to reflect on that principle there. That momentary glance of a man and a woman prostitute embracing each other. Everything is set to naught. All that he had is set to naught. How is that possible? Sometimes I wonder, right? In a moment, how can he just abandon everything? But that's the extreme example of abuse. That he's identifying it with it and wants to possess it. Come may what may. I'm going to compromise with everything else. So this is the unfortunate situation of identification with Krishna's energy by forgetting Krishna. Or even if you are momentarily enamored, if you don't do course correction to connect it back to Krishna, we may have this. We may not be conscious of Krishna when we see something beautiful. And we see this in Prabhupada's own pastimes. You all know Prabhupada was walking and one of his disciples was very attracted. He was just has his eyes fixated on Mataji, right? And a little bit later, this devotee turns back to Prabhupada and finds Prabhupada looking at him. Right? Beautiful, isn't she? Now look at the grace with which Prabhupada said. He didn't just smash him to pieces or burn him. There was grace. Because Prabhupada saw that connection with Krishna. It's not denying the reality of that beauty, but acknowledging the complete reality of the beauty. So when we slice the beauty that we see from the source, it's a partial understanding of reality, and then we cloud ourselves by wanting only the energy without the energetic. But on the other hand, a complete appreciation of the beauty without running away from the manifestation, it can be very humbling. Again, we must have heard the pastime of Ramanujacharya's disciples, Raktambal and Dhanurdas. Dhanurdas was a great disciple actually, and he was fanning the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and so carrying the umbrella, right? Carrying the umbrella, the Supreme Personality of Godhead in a Rath Yatra. But his eyes are fixated on this beautiful princess, lady, not princess, lady, Raktambal. And they kept walking. But Ramanujacharya, again, acknowledging the fact that yes, there is this attraction, and somehow he didn't pretend. At the same time, he was not conscious of the source of that attraction. So Ramanujacharya, he said, he offered Dhanurdas, do you want to see something really beautiful? Absolutely beautiful. He said, yes. And he took him to the beautiful darshan of Ranganath Swamiji, his beautiful lotus eyes. And yet, Ramanujacharya got Dhanurdas married to Raktambal. Because there was also that genuine affection. That affection was molded into service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, we are seeing some of these beautiful episodes. However, Ajamil's case, unfortunately, took a very different course, to the extent that he had forgotten everything. He had children and he named that child from the prostitute as Narayan. Yet, the seeds that were sown long back, they did bear fruits eventually. Right? So yes, Krishna is very kind in that sense. He did not let Ajamil's past investment in Krishna consciousness go waste. It never. Krishna says, Neha vikramadashosti pratyavayo na vidyate. Swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. So in that sense, it's there. It's not a problem of insurance policy. But it's about why do we procrastinate? And why do we put so many others also in jeopardy, in difficulty? And why do we risk in the first place? So, to redirect the attention to Krishna, Krishna is making this profound point in Bhagavad Gita. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattas sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita. So Krishna is in this verse giving us a recipe for what our regulated activities in the day should be, along with giving us the principle behind those activities. Buddha bhava samanvita. That what do the wise do? The wise, they worship me with all their hearts. They worship me. Now, that worshipping with all my heart is a part of regulative principle. It may be that on some days I don't feel that beauty connection with Krishna. But then you worship with your heart. Your heart, if it doesn't go somewhere, you invest. And yato nischali manaschanchalam astiram tatastato niyam yetat atmanyeva vasham nayet. Bring it back. Focus. With the understanding that actually it's the most beautiful. It's the source of all beauty. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Prabhupada gave us this very simple, yet it's simple, may not be easy, but a simple recipe of daily chanting the holy names of Krishna with attentive ears, with a very humble and grateful heart. Hey Krishna, please engage me in your devotional service. You, Mother Radharani, you are the cause of all attraction. Why? Because you see everything in connection with Krishna. You see a devotee performing seva and you are recommending the devotee to Krishna, so you are the bhakta par excellence. You can perform any service in its most refined and pure form. Yet you are very eager to recommend other devotees to Krishna. And we see this most beautifully manifested in Srimati Radharani, seeing everything in connection with Krishna and therefore wanting to connect everything to Krishna. But Srimati Radharani, I'm struggling. I'm struggling. There are too many ups and downs. Yes, there are, we can acknowledge there are episodes in our life when suddenly the wave of seeing Krishna does inspire and touch us, and we're able to practice genuine appreciation for the service of others towards Krishna. But then there are other waves. The waves go down, and then I'm struggling to even basically regroup myself and remember you. Krishna, this is just because of my mind being polluted by bombardment of desires. I've been carrying this for long. But Krishna, you're very kind upon me. You have been kind upon everyone. Srimati Radharani, I'm sure you will help me get out of this trap just the way you helped that jackal get out of a fire, uh, you know, uh, fire trapped hole. So with this assurance, we can invest at least a fixed amount of time every day in chanting the holy names very sincerely. The quality of chanting is very important. It's possible that sometimes our japa gets affected in terms of feeling sleepy, feeling a bit fatigued. But if Hare Krishna, if that remains a regular phenomenon, it can be a little unfortunate. Our our practice of japa is so important that I would say, I mean, understanding from the scriptures, understanding from the teachings of our acharya, if even if many things around us change, the chanting of the holy name is one, and the environment, the mindset we create towards chanting the holy name is something we should invest into making it as stable as possible. Hmm. Why? Because that's one opportunity we get every day. No matter how down I feel, how far away from Krishna I feel, um, how unfortunate I find myself, both materially and spiritually, that's my opportunity to reconnect back. Just like your mobile, my mobile may be getting discharged, right? But on a periodic basis, we try to find a hole where to plug in, and we do that very religiously, right? So imagine, here's an opportunity we have every day to plug back our charger to a plug point, which is always live. It doesn't go down, right? We may think electricity doesn't go down in the US, but it can go down, right? It's not infallible. But that source of energy will never go down. So what an opportunity we have to chant every day. I mean, it's Srila Prabhupada's such amazing. I mean, it's an amazing gift to entire humanity that Srila Prabhupada created this regulation, 16 rounds minimum, which means 16 into 108 times those many opportunities we have. At least once we can connect to the socket, right? I mean, we sometimes we are sleepy, so you just slip you miss the socket. It just goes down somewhere. Then you can try. But 16 into 108 efforts, at least one effort will succeed. I mean, he had wanted 64 into 108, but 16 into 108 on the offering. So such an amazing opportunity we have during Japa to connect, to connect. I'm very inspired, by devotees like Vaisheshika Prabhu who offer these Japa retreats, um, which are basically opportunities to help us realize that we need to get charged. It Yes, the message from such retreats are to be practiced on a daily basis. So Krishna, I move to the next point. Krishna is the original identity from whom all other identities emanate. Yatra yena yato yasya yasmai yad yat yatha yaya syadidam bhagavan sakshat pradhana purusheshwarah. In the context of the chanting of the holy name, let's meditate on this important message. This is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 85th chapter, verse number 4. Yatra yena yato yasya. Yatra means from where. Now, this is very simple Sanskrit. It's actually, the verse can be understood very easily. Yatra, where? Yena, by whom? Yataha, from where? Yataha is Panchami Vibhakti. Yataha, from where? Yatra, where? Yena, by whom? Yasya, whose? Yasmai, in whom? Yad yad yatha yatha yada. Yad yad. Yad yad vibhuti mat sattvam. Yad yad, whenever, right? Yatha, however, how? Yatha means how, like for example, Katha, um, the means by which, right? And yada, when. Syadidam Bhagavan Sakshat. Whatever is created, wherever it is created, whenever it is created, from whomever it appears to be created, one should understand that this is created by you, from you, for you, in relation to you. So I'll read the translation by Srila Prabhupada. I try to explain this very beautiful verse, very simple to understand. Syad is a form of Sanskrit where you say must be. Syat, this should be that way. Should be. Idam, this Bhagavan Sakshat. So you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead who manifests as the Lord of both nature and the Creator of nature. Everything that comes into existence, however and whenever it does so, is created within you, uh, by you, from you, for you, and in relation with you. It's total encompassing verse. I mean, just to give a simple analogy, you have seen an arrow being shot, or in the US, you see a lot of bullets being shot, right? So, arrow being shot. Now, how does the arrow get its strength? From the string. But where does the string get its strength? From the hand of the bowman, right? So, similarly, when I see that arrow coming in full speed or a bullet in the US, of course, it's so difficult to think of this when we see a bullet coming out. It's just too fast, actually. But whenever we see that arrow coming out, we understand that the strength has come from the bowman who has shot it. Similarly, all energies we see being shot into this world, we can understand that they are subordinate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because there are energies coming from the bowman, the Supreme Lord, the archer, Supreme Archer. Right? Somebody may try to be a macho man and shoot in one or two directions, but the Supreme Lord is shooting his energy in every direction, which is not destructive, which is attractive, which is appealing to us to come back to Him. Prabhupada, therefore, magazine Back to Godhead. Prabhupada wrote a magazine to appeal to us that see the energy of Krishna is attracting back to Him. So this beautiful verse also again reinforces this point that Krishna is indeed the supreme object of our love, because all energy is meant for him, has emanated from him, is by him. So bach ke kahan jaoge, as they say in Hindi, right? That where are you going to, how are you going to move away from Krishna's energy? Let's understand the purpose of that energy, which is Krishna. And when we experience that energy in the association of devotees, so the chanting of the holy name, it then the same supreme Lord, supreme personality of Godhead, in the form of the holy names, he not only enriches us, but through the association of the Bhakta Sangha, he makes our heart melt. In the Sangam of the devotees, it's explained that when one hears the holy names of Krishna and bathes himself in the holy name of Krishna, then one actually becomes completely Krishnized. Whether one is making an effort from her or his end or not. Because when we are chanting the holy names, our mind can slip occasionally. But when we are in the association of devotees, that scope gets even further reduced. It becomes very difficult to wander out. And when the devotees are so surcharged chanting the holy names, we see in the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, entire night they would be performing Sankirtan. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked devotees, you should have some prasad. No, don't worry about our eating. That's how they were immersed in the holy names. In fact, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself acknowledged that what is his night? It's such a distraction. We are all have to sleep. So much of time gets wasted. We should chant the entire night. So daytime they would be chanting, and night also they would be chanting. So that's the strength of satsanga. And in that satsanga, when we fill our ears with the holy names, we carry that even when we are not in the association of devotees. I remember this question being asked to one very senior Vaishnava. How do we behave, in a very Krishna conscious manner when we are not in the association of devotees? And beautiful answer, as I recall, when there's a craving to be in the sangha of devotees, that craving itself is a cause of being completely surcharged. And therefore, when we are in the association of devotees, after that craving, we will be able to carry the nectar even when we move away from that association. So, this desire to be in the association of devotees and value it can actually surcharge us even in very unfortunate situations when we are away. And we see Prabhupada's disciples, sometimes they were sent to very remote areas, could be Russia, but they carried the message in their heart with utmost sincerity. And I was so amazed to hear, even the COVID time, I was told that in this Silicon Valley, Vaisheshika Prabhu initiated this book distribution over phone. Devotees couldn't go out and distribute books the way they would typically. But being so innovative and creative, why? That creative energy is because of the intense desire to connect to Krishna. How can COVID stop us from connecting to Krishna? Stop the devotees who are sincere from connecting to Krishna. So here there are alternatives. So it's not just about strategization. It's really seeking that energy, that is Krishna's energy, and wanting to offer everything. Yatra yena yato yasya yasmai yad yad yatha yatha syadidam bhagavan sakshat pradhana purusheshwara. So with this, how much time do we have, Prabhu? Okay. So if there are questions or comments from devotees, I'll be sure. So the conclusion of what we try to discuss is that we basically love anything or anyone, or even our own self, only because of its connection with Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. In fact, our dearness to Krishna gets manifested in our dearness to everything else. We possess an object which is very dear. Sometimes an object from our childhood, we are possessing it. We don't want to let go of that. I mean, sometimes it's a broken piece of glass, but it's still very dear. we see it manifested in so many different ways. And Srila Prabhupada, in fact, saw this even when, he saw the hippies trying to go on a high. Prabhupada said, You're trying to see Krishna. But that's not the way you see Krishna. He did acknowledge, to the extent that, he said, You're drinking liquor, the taste of liquor is Krishna. And if actually that's what is being pointed out here. But there are better ways to experience and want to experience Krishna. So Krishna is the dearmost object of our life, whether we know it or not. Yes, at the very fact that we find so many objects around us attractive must be that these objects, which are like arrows shot from a bow, must have a bowman. Who is that bowman? Let me seek that out. And the hours we get for chanting is an opportunity for us to seek out that bowman and connect to that bowman. And when we connect to that bowman, we, in our activities, we can actually act as bows emanating from that bowman. With that consciousness, it becomes even more natural to understand karmanyevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana yajnatart karmano netra loko yam karma bandhana, because I'm just simply an arrow being shot from that bowman. So everything goes back to the bowman. Yatra yena yato yasya yasmai yadyad yatha yatha syadidam bhagavan sakshat pradhana purusheshwara. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Like to comment or
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu, for the wonderful lecture. You very nicely actually gave this vision of how to connect everything to Krishna. And beautiful instance, many instances you gave. At the same time, I was thinking of at least my unfortunate situation where this attraction for the all attractive is kind of nil. But the so-called which are not supposed to be attractive seems very attractive. For example, let's say some flashing news or some YouTube video about something. So there we don't need any extra endeavor or usual thing, the money, let's say stock market up and down. We do not need extra endeavor to focus or concentrate. It seems very natural. But what is supposed to be the most attractive? Chanting, reading, hearing, worshipping. They seem to need a lot of endeavor to focus. Mind is slipping away. We are trying. So that's very unfortunate. So how can I be rescued? What is the process of transformation that can take place from this extreme to the other, at least in the middle way, if not?
Very profound, very grounded, I would say. There's a struggle I go through. Sometimes one is totally overwhelmed by the attractions around. Yet, the point being made in the scriptures, in one sense, is very simple. Yad yad vibhuti mat. You sometimes, if you are overwhelmed by so many beauties around us, it could be in multifaceted beauty. Vibhuti mat sattvam Srimat urjitam eva va. Krishna says that is my teja amsha. Now, the point you made is it's teja amsha, but that teja amsha is just too attractive. Why should I look at the source of that? Sometimes the might argue, right? It's just so beautiful. Let me just float in the expansions of Krishna. One can also help, or have conversation with one's mind, that being so enamored by the soul, by the expansions, without understanding the purpose, the prayojanam, the purpose behind those expansions, can be very self-defeating. That's what happened to Ajamil. He didn't understand, he couldn't contemplate on the purpose of those attractions. I mean, Ajamin is one, but look at someone like Hiranyakashipu or Ravan. With so many, Ravan had so many wives, but that one mother, Sita, and despite all the advice of his wives, he was so possessed to the extent of wanting to fight Lord Ram, right? Without seeing that Sita is Ram's. So, therefore, while we have the process of sadhana, which I tried to allude to earlier, which is a way of daily, everyday plugging ourselves, and even if for some significant amount of time during our sadhana, if not the entire duration, we just chant the holy names and hear attentively Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Even for some amount of the chanting duration, we chant this holy name with attention, crying out like a child for his mother. It's guaranteed, is assured that that duration will actually nourish us and make us very sincerely seek out the source of the attractions that is we are being bombarded or we feel bombarded with throughout the day. But notwithstanding the fact that the chanting is very important, we also should seek out association, therefore. And when we say association, seeking association, maybe for devotees who have spent significant time in the moment, we need to graduate a little bit beyond just coming together with devotees. We can always do that. That's important, physically being there. Whether it's through Zoom or physical. But the quality of that association is as important. One can be there for 3 hours and totally spaced out. Or one could be there for half an hour or a few minutes and really tune in. You can have a radio, right? And the radio is totally tuned out and just producing producing noise. So the same radio, when it's tuned in, you hear music. So we can also aspire to be tuned in, whether it's chanting or whether it's association of devotees. Just be conscious. Krishna consciousness is very natural when we are conscious in the presence of devotees. When we are conscious while chanting the holy names. In fact, I would share from my experience that we should just learn to be a little conscious. Because if the habit of mind being misplaced takes over us, it becomes very difficult to be conscious even while having prasadam. And according to Ayurveda, we know that not being conscious of what we are eating is detrimental to one's health. So I would encourage that devotees, make an effort to be conscious. More so when you are in the association of devotees, more so when you are chanting the holy names, when you are taking darshan of the Supreme Lord. And that consciousness, just being conscious and being present there, believe me, has a very contagious effect. Hare Krishna. Does that help, Prabhu?
Absolutely, Prabhu. Thank you. You give so many points, trying to chant every day. That is one. You said devotee association, like plug in and take and treasure those moments where we can fully feel the presence of Krishna.
Right.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. I'd like to, there was one more point I had wanted to speak earlier, but now it seems very contextual. There are two Sanskrit words, Saragrahi and Bharagrahi. Right? Bhara is just, so we can carry the load full of all the attractions we are seeing around us. That's Bhara. We can also carry the load full of, criticisms. That's also Bhara. But a devotee seeks to be Saragrahi. The whole process of being conscious and connecting is Sara. You're connecting to the essence. And there's a beautiful verse I wanted to quote from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 18th chapter, verse number 7. It can be very inspirational to us. This is a story of Maharaj Parikshit. Nanu dveshti kalim samrat saranga iva sarabhuk kushalanyashu siddhyanti netarani kritani yat. He's saying that Maharaj Parikshit, how was he? He was saranga iva sarabhuk. Saranga, bumblebee. What does it do? Sara bhuk. It relishes the sar, the essence. So he was like a bee who only accepted the essence of a flower. He knew perfectly well that in this age of Kali, auspicious things produce good effects immediately. This auspicious things produce good effect immediately. What an amazing point. We are somewhere where there is something auspicious going on. Just let's be tuned in. Chanting of the holy names, you all believe it's auspicious. Just let's be tuned in. Let's extract the sar. Connect to the sar. But in the translation, it says, whereas inauspicious acts must be actually performed to render effects. What an assuring statement, right? Inauspicious things you have to perform. But in auspicious things produce good effects immediately. Even if it means contemplating, even if it means just extracting that sara. So it's a big benediction for us, isn't it? So he was, therefore, in this context, it's explained he was never envious of the personality of Kali because he had to deal with Kali. I mean, we may think I have to deal with the stock market, we have to deal with YouTube news, whatever you talked about, right? But Parikshit Maharaj had to deal with the personality of Kali. I mean, how repelling it could have been. But here he was Saragrahi. Hare Krishna. Anyone like to comment? We have 4 minutes. Oh. Hare Krishna. Bro.
Haribol. Yeah, thank you, Prabhu, for the wonderful
Hare
class.
Krishna.
Prabhu, I just wanted to add one thing which struck to me was you mentioned about acknowledgement, and I was just thinking that the word acknowledgement actually is something that we need to uh, practice even in our material life and spiritual life as well. The way you mentioned the gopis, they were acknowledging Krishna, although they see Krishna all the time, and the eyes were sort of inhibition, the eyelids were sort of inhibitions for them, but it just made them realize again they were able to see the darshan of Krishna. And you were just mentioning that acknowledgement is so important. And what came to my mind was in Grahastha ashram also. The acknowledgement is so important. And immediately you brought the point about someone cooking for you, and sometimes you just pass by, but you don't acknowledge, and it is so important. And same thing for Krishna's creation and Krishna's beauty, and then understanding Krishna himself. So thank you so much for that.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for acknowledging that point on acknowledgement.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
There's a
Krishna.
question. There's a comment online. I just wanted to read it to you.
Yes.
It's on the appreciation. It's saying such nice arrangement, gathering together to speak and hear Krishna Katha. Such enthusiastic devotees. Hare Krishna. So just I
Hare-
wanted to say there's an appreciation from online YouTube.
Hare Krishna.
Hare-
If there are no further questions or comments, maybe a few minutes of Kirtan. Oh, Prabhuji, please.
Hare Krishna. So first of all, thank you for considering coming to our place. And I would like to thank Charu Prabhu, Charunamaya Prabhu, and all the ISP devotees who was, they just came out of the job and reached here and organized the whole, setup for the live streaming. And thanks to Ankur Prabhu especially for bringing Gaura here. And I'm so happy to have you here. And me and Ansupriya were very grateful to you with your family. And all of you come here all the way. And thank you. Thank you, Sundar Prabhu, especially coming here.
But a pleasure to see you.
We have a short Kirtan now.
Yeah. It's okay.
Yes, yes.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Jai Gurudev, Jai Gurudev, Jai Gurudev, Jai Srila Gurudev. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय। हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। इस्कॉन सिलिकॉन वैली की जय।
Prabhuji, one of the highlights of the talk today I took is that you said one statement that's like a star statement. I'll carry it. So you said that Krishna is the most attractive objective in our life, whether we know it or not. That was like a so profound statement. And secondly, you are also talking about charging ourselves in devotee association, one of the medicine you gave to revive. So I felt like you are like that power bank, and you we could all plug in tonight and you charged all of us. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Gaura Hari Prabhu ki jai. We'll end the broadcast now. Everyone.